An agent calls you and asks you to show the house, tell them, of course you can come see my house. If they decide they want to buy your house, they'll make you an offer. And you analyze the offer. You decide if it's acceptable to you or not.
Welcome to the RE Real Estate Podcast, where we discuss buying and selling real estate in black and white. Here are your hosts, Ben Harang and Clint Galliano.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Harang with Keller Williams Realty Bayou Partners. With me is my co-host, Clint Galliano. Good afternoon, Clint. How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Ben. How you doing?
Clint, I'm doing terrific on a warm, not so rainy day this afternoon. We've been getting some rain lately, and it was supposed to rain today, and I hadn't gotten anywhere I am yet today. So life is good. Life is good. So
yes, indeed.
We've been talking about different topics for the podcast, and I think we settled on one. So why don't you take the topic and get it rolling, and we'll get some conversation going.
All right. So the official topic is going to be thinking of selling your home without an agent, commonly known as for sale by owner. Here's what you need to know. What you think about that?
Well, also commonly referred to as FSBO, FSBO in the real estate language. And people, there's no law that says somebody has to use a real estate agent to list and sell their property. There are people that do it. Statistically, something less than 10% of the people actually are successful selling it, and most of the time they're undervalued. But there's reasons there are real estate agents that help people buy and sell property, and we're going to hit some of those topics and just give you something to think about, because sometimes it's not always about just the money, and typically we're able to put more money in your pocket after any fees are paid. So
yeah, and we're not trying to bash the people that sell the homes themselves.
Not at all.
We're trying to give guidance and just give a clear picture of what you need and kind of the risks and the rewards.
Because you buying your first house is probably not a good idea are you selling your first house? It's probably not a good idea to be a for sale by owner. If you're selling your 10th house, you might know the pitfalls and decide to take the chance. So we're gonna just kind of cover some topics, and we'll let you make up your mind.
There you go. All right. So we're going to walk through what's really involved if you want to sell your house on your own. So we'll start out with the rewards. And the biggest reward is you'll save on compensation to the agents if you not using agents. So you'll save on compensation for at least one agent, because it doesn't guarantee that you won't have a buyer show up with an agent.
Right. And just because you're not paying an agent doesn't mean you're going to save that money either. Sometimes the discount they're asking you for is more than the cost of the agent. So the fact that you don't have an agent to pay doesn't mean you're going to save that much money.
Yep. So some of the things you may actually lose, you run into some issues where you undervalue your home. So you could be missing out on money there, or you're overpricing. We had a whole discussion about pricing. Actually, I think we had two whole discussions. We were so excited about it.
Because it does make a difference.
Yeah.
The right price does make a difference. Yeah.
So that could be an issue if you're doing it yourself and you're not used to pricing homes on a regular basis and how to calculate market pricing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Another issue you could run into is that you're going to have fewer qualified buyers, because the only thing you're going to have access to are people that see it on like Facebook Marketplace and Zillow, because those are your two basic options for listing homes for sale by owner without going to some type of flat fee brokerage. Yeah. And if you've ever tried to sell anything on Marketplace, oh my God.
Well,
that's a pain in the butt.
And I'm gonna tell you the thing that jumps out at me about trying to sell your house yourself is you have somebody trying to sell the house, whether you're still living there or you already moved out, and you get a call, and a lot of agents will do this. Clint and I don't do this, but you get a call, hey, I want to see your house. Well, What you looking for? I'm looking for a house. Well, how much, what price range are you in? Well, I don't know. Well, do you have a pre-approval? Well, no, I want to find a house first, then I'm going to get the pre-approval. And that's stuff we hear all the time. But don't be surprised if somebody rings your doorbell and says, I want to see your house. And you have a decision to make, either let them in or tell them we can make an appointment to do it at another time. It's not convenient right now. Well, if you don't let them in, you might have lost the sale. If you let them in, you don't know if they really want to buy the house or they just want to get inside your house and do whatever they're going to do. So we we have some notifications. Clint was not involved in law enforcement, but he sure got involved in an issue that we had a couple of years ago at Keller Williams, when some guy that's just a scam artist came in acting like he wanted to buy $1 million house, Clint, and
Yeah.
That could have gone south quickly. And the safety issue in my mind is the biggest reason why you don't want to do this. Why you don't want to be a for sale by owner. Because once somebody gets in your house and the door's closed, and we go through training on how not to let that happen. We always let the buyers in that we don't know. They go in first, and I'm always between them and the door. And they're probably not looking to do anything to me, but you never know what's going to happen, whether it's robbery or worse than that. So anyway, that's my spiel on safety. If you do decide to go for sale by owner route, just be cautious and aware of your surroundings and who you let in your house.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
get off my soapbox, Clint.
there you go. So one of the other things that is also something to watch out for is legal or paperwork mistakes. There are set rules for the transfer of property, things like property disclosures. If you're using the residential buy-sell agreement, there are deadlines and dates and timelines stipulated in that agreement that if they're not held to, they can render the purchase agreement null and void. They can cause you as the seller some grief. So understanding and knowing the paperwork, and you can complete a sale without using any of that, but that could also lead to problems. We run into problems every day of people that have bought a home, just went to the notary and either paid a note or just did an active sale with the notary. And then when we go to facilitate them selling the property to someone else, they start doing a title search, and there may be 14 unopened successions on the chain of title. And it winds up being that there's no way that they can sell that piece of property because they can't prove a clear chain of title without opening those 14 unopened successions and closing them out. And that's a whole other pain in the butt.
And that might be more expensive than the value of the property. So at that point, you have property that's worthless that you can't sell. You can sell it, but it's going to cost you more to clear the title than the property is worth. So just get professionals to do their job. I told a story about one I had a while back where they had a lease and a subdivision was not recorded on a cash sale, and it caused grief in 45 days, and thankfully we were able to clear it up. But it for a minute there, I didn't think we'd be able to close on the property. So, and speaking of paperwork, Clint, we talked about this before we started on the podcast, but the property disclosure form required in Louisiana, we cannot be involved in a sale where the seller does not complete that form when it's required.
And the seller has to complete it. We can't do it.
Right. We don't fill it out with our pen in hand. The seller has to do it. We can talk about it, and they can complete it, and we can work through it with them, but we don't fill it out. But a for sale by owner is not required to have that piece of paper completed, and it's 11, 12, 13 pages now, Clint?
13 total. Not all of them have to have writing on it. Some of it's informational.
Yeah. And then you have to decide if you're exempt or not. That's one problem. But the real issue is state law says if that form is not provided to a buyer, the buyer can void that transaction at any point in the transaction up to the closing without any consequences at all. So when Clint and I were talking earlier, let's just say you have a deal on a house for $325,000 and everything went smooth. You get to the closing table, everybody's happy, and you have a buyer that might be not the most up and up individual, but knows the law, and he makes arrangements to pay you $300,000 at the closing rather than three and a quarter, and tells you you can sell it for 300 or you can I'm gonna get up and walk out. You say, wait, you signed a purchase agreement. You can't do that. There's you you're breaching the contract. I said, no, I never got the property disclosure from you. And the state law says I can walk away at any point in time. So right now, your choice, sell the house for $300,000. I'm out the door. Now, uh, I've heard it happen where people backed out because they did not get the the property disclosure. I haven't seen that happen where it got that bad, but it certainly could. And that's just something to be aware
Indeed.
of.
So you definitely want to make sure you're on top of your paperwork. Another thing, if you're not doing this on a day-to-day basis, you've got less negotiation leverage because you don't know a multitude of options for negotiation and where the edges of the envelope are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those are things you watch out for. And on top of that, buyers are still going to come in and negotiate down your price, even though you priced it without taking commissions into account. Buyers are going to still come in and negotiate down on the price because everybody wants a deal.
I've seen FSBOs grossly overpriced and people go see the house because buyers see more houses than we do sometimes, and they have a better feel for the market value of the properties that they're looking at with their agents. And somebody says, well, make me an offer. Well, if you're $150,000 overpriced because you have the best house in the neighborhood and you like your house more than anybody else, you're not going to even get an offer on the house. You
What's that
need to be
phrase you said, Ben? You're buying your house?
you're gonna buy your house. You're gonna pay more for your house than anybody else. So wash your clothes and put them back in the closet, and you're gonna stay there a while. You just need to be realistic on the pricing. And if it's overpriced and you're not getting any activity, you need to adjust the price. And at some point, you might decide you don't want to sell the house for that price. Then make your bed and sleep in it.
Yeah. So next, we're going to move on to marketing. So first things first, good photos. Yeah, iPhone photos, don't cut it. All right.
No.
Hire a professional real estate photographer and make sure it's a real estate photographer. I've got a friend of mine that's a great photographer.
Mm-hmm.
He videos weddings, he videos recitals, he does portrait shooting and stuff like that. But he's not set up for real estate photography. You
And
want a photographer that is set up to take the proper photos and is familiar with taking the proper photos.
yeah, and the timeline to get the photos out. You know,
That too.
we need to make sure we get them out in a timely fashion. You can't wait 10 days for the photos. And iPhones, you can see them online. You can see them from a mile away. I don't care which iPhone you have. You can have the latest and greatest. It's still an iPhone photo or it's still a cell phone photo. And we try to give the property a fair representation of what it really is. I don't want the photo to oversell it or undersell it. If we oversell it, people are going to be disappointed when they walk in the door. If we undersell it, they'll never walk in the door. So we need that sweet spot where you see the photos online, and when you walk in the front door, it's the house you thought you were going to see.
Yeah. So, next statement, and I actually said it a little while ago, as a for sale by owner seller or FSBO seller, like Ben likes to say, you can't access the MLS. So that's actually cutting out a big portion of the market that's actively looking for homes to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So without using a flat fee listing service, which neither Ben or I provide flat fee listing services, just to make that clear, but without, you have no access unless you're paying a flat fee listing service to get on the MLS.
So, and Clint and I get paid only if we perform. If you go to a flat fee listing service, you're going to pay them to put it in the MLS, and that's all that
Whether you
happens.
sell or not.
That's right. That's right. You're paying up front. So we're performance based. You don't pay anything unless we perform. So I don't have I'm not interested in the flat fee just to get it in the MLS because it just sits there anyway.
So, like I said earlier, Facebook and Zillow are your main tools. Again, they're not enough. Is this available messages on Facebook or I'm interested are really kind of aggravating. You might get some leads from Zillow, but here's the thing about Zillow. Somebody sees a house they like on Zillow, they're going to click on contact an agent button on your listing, and it's going to go to a real estate agent anyways. So if you're
Right.
trying to stay away from real estate agents, Zillow's not going to be your friend in that respect.
And Clint talked about the paperwork. The purchase agreement is 11 pages now. When I started, when I was 12 years old, it was two pages. It's now 11 pages. And every time something happens, they add another section to the purchase agreement. So those additional 9 pages cover bad things that happen to somebody along the way. They try to cover every eventuality. And it gets to the point to where we see new agents coming in. They look at this 11-page purchase agreement and they don't even know what to put in the fill in the blank form. It gets so convoluted at some point, or sometimes it kind of scrambles your brain about inspection timelines and appraisal timelines and as is, and it just, if you don't do it every day, just be careful.
So just some comparison for marketing purposes between as a for sale by owner seller compared to listing with an agent. When you list with an agent will do open houses for you. They've got a network within their brokerage with other brokerages through the MLS and personal connections that they'll be sharing your home with to try and bring in buyers. They'll send email campaigns to other agents and to their own sphere of influence. So those are clients that they're working with, clients that they've worked with in the past, people they know that might be interested in buying it or know someone who might be interested in buying it to give maximum exposure to your property. So those are all things that you as a for sale by owner seller would need to do yourself.
And
so go ahead.
Well, the way the system works is there are plus or minus 400 of us that belong to the Bayou Board of Realtors. And with new technology, we opened it up basically for most of the state. So any agent can sell it. Their buyers, which they already have, actively looking for it. So your house may or may not be the one, but if it's close, it'll get shown. And eventually, one of those buyers that an agent has is going to like your house and want to buy it. If you do it, you have one house to sell. You need to resell it to everybody that goes look at it. You need to explain it to every agent that comes see you. You need to re-explain it to every buyer that comes to you. And you only have one. If I have a buyer and we have 10 houses to look at, they're going to buy one of those houses. You have one to sell them, and you're wasting your time trying to sell them your house when it doesn't fit them. You kind of that needle in a haystack. The right buyer might find your house. It does happen, but it generally doesn't because a lot of people start off with their house. I'm gonna put a sign in the front yard for a week or 3 and see what happens. They invariably call us back and say, "I don't know how you do this. Come put a sign in. Come put your number in my front yard because I don't want to talk to these people anymore."
Yes, indeed. All right. Moving on, paperwork and legal side. We've talked about disclosures. We've talked about the purchase agreement. We've kind of talked about what happens when things go sideways, title defects. One we didn't touch on is financing issues. So generally, whether we bring a buyer or whether another agent brings a buyer, we're working to ensure that that buyer is fully qualified and it's not just Joe Blow off the street. We understand how to qualify that buyer financially to make sure that we can get to closing. If there are issues, then we've got different, I guess you could kind of call them playbooks to try and figure out how to get that buyer to closing. Little tiny short story. I've got a listing right now where the current quotes for insurance, because the lender requires full replacement coverage insurance on the property, is runs from 11,000 something dollars a year just for homeowners, not counting flood, to a little bit over 15,000 depending on which quote he would decide to go with. So that's almost over $1,000, almost $1,000 to over $1,000 a year
a month
on top of his house, or a month on top of his house note that he would have to pay just for homeowners insurance. So that's going to be a no-go, So what we're looking at is other lenders that aren't going to require that he get full coverage insurance that allows him to get lower cost insurance so that it's more affordable for him to pull that off. So those are things that we do in those situations. The other thing is, whether you're using a real estate agent or not, get a real estate attorney involved. Whether it's making sure that the buyer closes through a real estate attorney, or if you as the seller have a real estate attorney review the purchase agreement and make sure you understand what you're agreeing to.
Absolutely. We didn't talk about the appraisals. We did an episode, I think, on appraisals, but if the appraisal comes in $10,000 short, what do you do about it as a for sale by owner? Do you roll over? Do you push back? Do you lose the sale? That's one thing. And look, we get people pre-qualified every day. We talk to the lender, we talk to the other agent, we find out as much as we can about them, and things still go south. So I can't imagine how somebody that has never done it can pre-qualify somebody and really expect to get to the closing. One of the horror stories is you think your house is sold, you move out. You go move in with a friend, or you rent a hotel room, or you rent a house. And 2 days before the closing falls apart because the buyer didn't tell the lender about something, or the buyer can't sell the house they needed to sell to get the loan that they didn't tell you they needed to sell to get the loan. Those are the things we vet
pulls
out.
$10,000 out from under his mattress and deposits it in his bank account for the closing costs. And the lender says, "Hey, buddy, you just killed your purchase agreement."
Or went out and financed a house full of furniture. Had that happen, or quit their job the day of the closing. Quit the job the day of the closing, and we couldn't close because he didn't have a job. It happens. It happens to us. Things happen, but we try not to let it happen, and it still happens. I can't imagine somebody not knowing the pitfalls and can navigate it to get to an actual successful closing.
So we touched on safety. So when you're selling your home without an agent, you're your own showing agent. So you need to schedule the showings, you need to screen the potential buyers, and you need to do follow-ups on the buyers after they come in and see the house. Safety concerns are letting strangers in, especially if it's vacant or if it's in a remote area, which I think I've said a couple of podcasts ago, a couple episodes ago, pretty much everywhere around here is remote. The other part is that you don't have a neutral third party to get feedback from the buyers. So it makes it a little bit harder for you to adjust your strategy if it's not working, because you're not able to understand why things aren't moving, why you're not getting a purchase agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things to do with showings that you may want to be aware of.
And one more thing, I don't know if it fits in this subcategory, but I'm going to tell you a position you do not want to be in. You do not want to have a buyer represented by a seasoned real estate agent that you are negotiating with. You will lose every time before you start.
That's
Just the way it is.
Ben.
You lose. I've done it, and I feel bad for the people on the other side because they don't want to spend the money. I get it, but I know before we start they lose, and I've had people tell me after the fact, said, until we did this, I didn't think y'all were worth the money. Well, now I'm homeless. I'm selling my house because I want to. In the house, I don't have an agent on that I'm buying. I can't get the woman out so I can buy it and close. So I have to move in with my sister because I need to sell my house because I want this house whenever we can buy it. You're better off not being put in that position.
So this next segment is negotiations and inspections. So, and our first bullet point here in our list of topics that are things to talk about is when you're selling your home by yourself, you're negotiating directly with buyers or their agents without backup. So you've got nobody to bounce it off of or strategize with. Some common mistakes is getting emotional during your negotiations, not knowing when to push back or when not to push back, and failing to prepare for repair requests. Because if the buyer's working with an agent, they're likely going to have a home inspection, and there's a good chance that they're going to ask for some type of repairs to be made. And it may be something that's critical. It may not be something that's critical, but they have the right to walk away if they don't like your response to that.
And I tell people part of our job is to adjust our clients' expectations and to take the emotion out of the transaction. You're in love with your house, you want to sell it, but you just don't want to sell it to somebody that doesn't like the paint color you chose because that comes from your mama's house. I don't care if they don't like the paint color in your house. You'll never know they don't like the paint color in your house because you're not going to talk to them. So keep the emotion out of it. It's a business transaction. You want to sell your house and the people want to buy it, let's just get it done. But that is a big part of what we do. We laugh that we become counselors. We talk people off the ledge all the time. They get emotional. And I said, look, you can take it out on me all you want. Just let it all out right here, right now. But before you make a decision, we'll get back to the rational side. If the house has been on the market for 6 months and we $250 apart on the deal, it doesn't make sense to put it back on the market. That's just an example of what people have done. They got emotional and got upset and made a poor financial decision because they let their emotions get away with them or get away from them.
Yeah. So
you're trying to keep me on track, and I'm not doing it. Clint, not doing a good job.
Hey, that's why this works. That's why I'm looking at the guide, at our notes here. So sometimes when I'm trying to think of the right word here, where I could approve of somebody selling a house for themselves. If you're an experienced investor or a past agent, like Ben mentioned before we started recording, if you've sold 10 houses, or was that earlier in this episode?
It could have been either one. I don't remember.
Could have been either one. I don't remember. So, if you sold 10 houses, then you probably can represent yourself. So
maybe,
not 100%, but you have a chance at it. If you're selling to a relative, there's probably less chance of an issue coming up. But overall, you still want to have a legal or professional help. So a real estate attorney, somebody that understands the process to be in your corner, and definitely would be somebody that you've hired to help you out. Like I said, to review your contracts, advise you on processes, things like that. Even if it's not listing it with a real estate agent, have somebody that can give you the advice to get you through the transaction. So
yeah, and if you put your cell number out there where people call you 24/7 about the house down the street or the house you have for sale, and the phone calls you get. That's what happens when you put your cell number on a sign in your front yard. You don't know who's calling you. You don't know when they're calling you. You don't know why they're calling you. You don't know if they're calling you because they want to cut the grass or they want to wash the house or you need to deal with all of those things. And people have the misconception. I think they're going to put a sign in the front yard. Somebody's going to call them. They're going to take one phone call. People are going to say, yeah, I want to buy your house. We're going to close next Tuesday. It's not that simple.
And I will say, I don't do this, and I don't think Ben does it either, but, you know, we're also not going to say, hey, I might have a buyer that wants to buy your house.
Not even close.
That's a fishing expedition.
Right. If an agent ever calls you and says, I have a buyer that wants to buy your house, I need to come preview it for them. That's just a marketing strategy to get in the house with you so they can talk to you. Then I don't know how relationships are built on trust. And if somebody gets in front of you for a reason other than what they tell you, I don't know how you can build on trust. So,
and I mean, what I do, I do have buyers that want to look at for sale by owner properties. I'll call up and schedule an appointment to bring the buyer by, and I'll get approval from you as a for sale by owner seller and say, hey, is it okay if we come by on this date at this time? And if that's okay, then I'll show up with the buyer.
Right. We do that. And I'm gonna give you some advice. I'm gonna give for sale by owner properties that are for sale if you decide to do it yourself. An agent calls you and asks you to show the house. First thing they ask is, well, I'm not paying an agent. They'll say, I don't want to pay an agent, or they'll say whatever they want to say. Don't do that. Tell them, of course you can come see my house. Because what's going to happen is if they decide they want to buy your house, they'll make you an offer. And you analyze the offer. You decide if it's acceptable to you or not. Now, if you don't know what you're looking at, they may give you an acceptable offer that you think is not acceptable, or give you an offer that you think is acceptable, and you get to the closing and you miss the fact that they want you to pay $10,000 in closing costs because you didn't have anybody else look at it. So just be careful. If you decide to do it yourself, I don't want anybody to get hurt and get in a financial bind. Just be very careful. So, and if you want to try it. And if you have enough of it after a week or so, call Clint or I, and we can get it done for you.
Yeah, we can step in right in. You don't have to start over.
Right.
And
what we've seen a lot of times, so I'm sorry for stepping on you, Clint, that reminded me. Somebody tries to sell their house for a week, a month, 6 months, they can't sell it. And we get involved, and the house is now what I refer to as stale on the market. Because people have seen the sign, they might have seen it on Zillow, they might have seen it somewhere else online. So we get in, the sign goes down, people say, well, I guess they sold it. And then they see our sign go up and say, well, I don't guess they sold it. And all of a sudden, all the other agents are aware that this property is available. They're buyers. And it's like there's a feeding frenzy because the house was available, then it wasn't, now it's available. And in 2 or 3 days, we have a contract on an accepted purchase agreement on the house. And people are like, how did you do that? Well, that's what we do. The system is designed to bring buyers to the properties. So it's always interesting to see when that happens. The people that tried to sell it say, I've been trying to sell that house for 6 months, and I got 4 calls, and 3 of them couldn't buy a hamburger at McDonald's, and you sold it in 3 days. Well, that's just what we do.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to work. That's how it does work. And ultimately, we wish you the best. If you think it's something you want to take on, by all means, go for it.
Have fun.
If you
Good luck.
You need advice, you need help, give us a call.
Yeah.
You want to list with one of us, give us a call. We got our contact info in the show notes.
All right.
So,
all right. You think we scared people off of for sale by owner, Clint? You think they heard us, or you think they can still do it?
To be honest, it doesn't really matter to me.
It doesn't.
I just wanted to give them some factual information.
Right. And people will continue to do it, and I don't blame them. I see the pitfalls, and I feel bad for people when they get caught in it, and they call, and there's not a whole lot anybody can do to help them out at that point, depending on what they signed.
Yeah.
This is a disclaimer. We're not We're not attorneys. We're not lenders. We're not insurance agents. We're real estate agents. Like the disclosure says, we're real estate agents, but we're not your real estate agent unless we have something signed in writing.
Yeah. So with that being said, we'd like for you to like, subscribe, comment, and share. We're out on all of the audio podcast platforms, and we're also on YouTube and Spotify for video podcasts. You can find us at realestatepodcast.com. You can also ask us questions on realestatepodcast.com. So share it with your friends. Share it with your friends that want to know about buying or selling in South Louisiana. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Ben.
All right, Clint. Y'all have a good day. Thanks.
While we may discuss topics such as lending, interest rates, title law, real estate law, and appraisals in addition to real estate sales and transactions, please remember that we are only trained and licensed as real estate salespeople in Louisiana. The information shared on this podcast is for general purposes only and should not be taken as legal or financial advice. We may be agents, but unless we have signed paperwork stating otherwise, we are not your agents.